To another episode of the Stay Sub podcast. I'm your host, Brant Freeman. Been a very interesting summer series for the podcast. Our last guest was Monica McNabb, a longtime supporter and donor of Texas State Athletics and a tremendous figure to the local community as well. And, part of our summer series just involves getting to know more and more people who support Texas State Athletics. And that brings me to my guest in this week's episode. It's Chris Turnley, the Executive Vice President of Member Experience at UFCU. Of course, Bobcat fans know there's a tremendous partnership between UFCU and Texas State. The big news, of course, came about a year ago when the naming rights were awarded to UFCU, a great partnership between Texas State and the company. And now, of course, it's no longer Bobcat Stadium. It's UFCU Stadium. The name and likeness has been on the side of the stadium since about last year. And of course, that's what it's known as now. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and UFCU's support of Texas State, and also get to know Chris a little bit more as well. So with that, we welcome Chris onto the podcast. Chris, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Brent. Thanks for having me on today.
Thanks for being on here, Chris. It's a pleasure to be visiting with you. And so as I mentioned, UFCU is a huge supporter of Texas State Athletics, and you are as well. It's a name that, again, Bobcat fans are very familiar with now that it's, on the football stadium and all over campus. So, with that said, I want to get to know you, though, a little bit more. Sure. We'll dive into that partnership here in a little bit. I referenced your title, Vice President of Member Experience. Tell me more about your role within the company.
Sure. So if you think about a financial institution, there's always things that go on in the background. So my job is to make sure anything that touches our members, right, is aligned, but also value created for them. So what we think about here, what I think about UFCU is people go on with their daily lives all the time as a credit union, which is a member-owned cooperative, kind of not-for-profit financial institution. Our job is to best serve our owners, who are all the members. And so what I think about is, are they getting the right products at the right time? Are they getting the things they need to make their lives better? And are they getting it in a way that is easy for them to consume? So whether they want things digitally, are they getting it digitally? If they want to come in and actually have a conversation with someone, is that person easily found and easily accessible for them? And so we continue to look at how we remove barriers for people to live their best financial lives. And on campus, that's how they do that with while they're building out their educational life, right? Mm-hmm. Post-education, everything gets a little bit more complex, the numbers get a little bit bigger. And so we want to make sure that as people are tackling that next season of life, that they have access from campus all the way through. So we were continually building out across the state of Texas branches and things like and accessibility points, so that regardless of where the Bobcats and where the Bobcat alumni go, that we're accessible to them.
Now, you and I had the chance to visit a little bit off camera, off mic, before we got things going here, and got to learn a little bit more about you. You spent a lot of time in what they call the PNW, the Pacific Northwest. And what's interesting, of course, and we'll get more into depth about this, but the big news this summer with Texas State preparing to join the Pac-12 conference that'll go into effect July 1 of next year. And the Pac-12 for the longest time had a major footprint of the Pacific Northwest. They still do, with Oregon State and Washington State for sure. But you're very familiar with Pac-12 country. One of the former schools is a member of the conference, and now a part of the Big Ten, Washington. You're a graduate. You're a former Husky. So
I am.
Tell me, a little bit about your experience as a college student. Kind of growing up around maybe it was the Pac-10 then, but the Pac-12, and how you ultimately wound up in Texas.
So for me, I love being a Husky, right? And so I think they helped me form them. A lot of my family were Cougars, and we'll get back to that at the end of my answer here, because there's a special place in my heart for rooting against the Cougars, and I'm pretty excited about that. We get to do that again. But so I grew up in the east side of Washington State, outside of Spokane. and then I went over to the University of Washington to do my undergraduate. That happened to coincide with the 3-year run of winning the Pac-10, 3 years in a row, including the national title in 1992. So that was a huge endeavor, right? So you know what that does to you when all of a sudden your football team elevates, which is obviously I think what Texas State's feeling a little bit right now. When your team starts elevating, when you're playing on a different level, it touches every part of campus, unlike anything else. And so what it ingrained for me was that the university experience is a big deal. So it's important, obviously, what I learned there, how it expanded my world, being from a pretty small town, growing up, and then being in Seattle, Washington, where you begin to experience a whole different world. In the 90s, when there was a .com boom was starting and the whole world was kind of changing, the internet was coming alive. And so all of a sudden the world got a lot bigger for me in college. But where we knew everyone was focused was on Saturday, 12:30 kickoff, Keith Jackson, for those who are old enough to remember, rumbling and tumbling down the middle of the field. It was University of Washington football. And so while all the sports were great, and we attended a lot of them, football really brought the entire campus together in a community that was pretty different. So like University of Washington is actually has a larger percentage of people would think of commuters. But everybody came back. It's also a city not a lot of people at that time moved away from, so everyone stayed. So you saw purple everywhere amongst the entire city, because even the years the professional sports teams weren't very good, which there were a lot of years in Seattle, the professional sports teams were not very good. Everybody constantly wore purple, right? And it really brought an entire city together. And I think that was the power of football. It led me to some actions of how I think about some philanthropy we did and bringing youth sports programs into underserved areas through my time. But then growing in my career, did a lot of technology startups, did a lot of technology companies. And then we actually moved down to Texas in 2013 to build a church, allowed us to be involved there. And then about 7 years later, I joined up with UFCU on how to really make a difference in our community. And one of the areas I think we can make the biggest difference as we expand those college programs and expand our college partnerships, I think we can make a generational impact on those campuses. So it's been an amazing run. I tell people, like, I didn't know I was a Texan until I got here, but man, I got here as quick as I could. And we were just having an absolute ball between brisket, tacos, and football. I think I'm pretty well right in my wheelhouse.
For sure. Yeah, you're definitely playing the role of Texan very well here, Chris. And it's funny, taking our fans behind the curtain a little bit, about myself. I grew up, a big pro sports fan.
Yeah. And
it wasn't until I really got, involved with my coverage of Texas State that I really got to love and appreciate college sports, especially those here, at Texas State. And you kind of referenced, your experience as a student in Washington and stuff like that, and how big the sports there were. But, I know that the Pacific Northwest is also, there's a lot of pro sports up there, certainly in Seattle. And I hope I'm not opening up old wounds here, but the Sonics.
Oh, you got to kill me. Just kill me.
The Sonics for a long time, and the Mariners, and certainly the Seahawks, who won a Super Bowl, about 10, 12 years ago now. And, there's the Portland Trailblazers and stuff like that up in Oregon. So, I'm curious, I kind of mentioned where my sports fandom, comes from. Where does yours come from?
It's funny. Growing up, I grew up in the 1970s, and we actually didn't have two of our professional sports teams in Seattle didn't exist then until I was a little older. So some of my sports allegiances came earlier to other teams. So when people are like, why do you love the Pittsburgh Steelers? I'm like, because when I was growing up, you were either Steelers, Raiders, or a Cowboys fan, or you had a team in your region. So we didn't have that. So I was a Steeler fan because I couldn't envision the other two. And then on baseball, our minor league ball club was the Dodgers, minor league ball club. So we saw those guys go through. So I became a Dodger fan. But college football stole my heart. Like, it just did. The day I walked into my first college football game, I think it was actually at Washington State University. And I'm like, this is it. So for me, I think 30 years, 40 years of Pinnacle has been, man, college football on a Saturday. There is nothing else like it for me. There's lots of other cool sports and lots of other great sporting events I've gotten to go to, but there's nothing like college football.
I totally agree with that. The pageantry that goes along with it, the rivalries, and I'm sure that, University of Washington, very familiar, with the Apple Cup and Washington State and on all that. And, it's been great to see, Texas State's rivalry with UTSA get really ramped up, and, hope that continues even when Texas State, moves on to the Pac-12 conference and stuff like that. And so there's just something different, about college football that separates it from professional football, separates it from some of the other collegiate sports. It's just, again, something magical about it. And I mentioned earlier, again, in the podcast, and the big reason why we're visiting with you is to learn more about the partnership between Texas State and UFCU. So what drew UFCU to this partnership in the first place, and what can we expect from the pairing, between UFCU and the Bobcats this year?
Yeah, so I love this question. We've been actually, what people may or may not know is we've been partnering on the campus side of Texas State for about 10 years on financial health of students and how we address that, how we help the faculty and staff. And we wanted to do more. So when President Danfus came in, when Kelly came in, that was a game changer for us, because he had a different vision. He wanted to do some more things. He wanted to become nationally prominent in not just on the field, but off the field, obviously, with moving the whole university forward. And the past President Trump's administration did an amazing job setting them up for that. And then when he came in, it was like, let's go. And so what we found is a president who wanted to be fully engaged in this. So as we thought about the partnership, it actually started on campus for us. How do we help the students who are coming in, who are joining right now, who are signing up in orientation? How do we help them make sure they're financially ready for all the rigors of school, so that that's not the reason they're not completing? We want to increase graduation rates because financially they're set up, they know how to budget, they know how to manage those things. That came at the perfect time with Don and Kelly saying, and we want to do this in football. At first I was like, man, do we want to do a stadium deal? I don't know. Like we've been blessed at University of Texas. We've done the baseball stadium there for the last 15 plus years. We've had the stadium rights there. And so we learned a little bit, but football's different. As I said, football's a whole different, it is the sport. And so as we learned and thought about that, what they did a really good job of combining what we wanted and combining what they wanted, so that we had a true win-win that is also sustainable in how we're serving the campus, right? It was right in our mission, so it didn't feel outside of our mission, and it helped them. And it was interesting talking to them through this Pac-12 announcements and some of the things going forward. It really was at the time, outside of the Power 5 conferences, it was the largest stadium deal to be announced. And that took a lot of structure and took a lot of trust and that, but both sides came there. But I would say without the leadership of the current administration with Don and Kelly, we would not have done it, because you got to believe that they are really committed to building something special and building something that'll change the region. And we know that professional or college sports, especially football, is a welcome mat to the university, right? There's studies upon studies of that. And so we thought that was a great timing, as it has been. So the funny couple things. One is then EA Sports comes out with a college. So all of a sudden now people are playing, my son and other people are playing video games in UFCU stadium on the TV, and we're watching the team run out. And so all of a sudden millions of games are getting played in UFCU stadium. That was a huge benefit, again, from us, just from a branding and fun, like getting our employees, kick off, having a great time, and the students having a great time in it. So that was one more connection point. And then as they were talking to the Pac-12, we obviously couldn't know much about it, but I did tell Kelly, I said, I heard rumors online, and I said, if that happens, we might pay extra just so I can root against Washington State again, because I'm really excited about, again, rooting against the Cougs.
Well, you mentioned the word branding, and obviously it's so important, and the UFC logo is very prominent and recognizable, and its likeness is emblazoned on the side of the stadium now. And anytime fans walk up to the game or just driving by, Knock Arena, they see that sign. And I kind of mentioned this year, and I'm going to take the opportunity then to kind of introduce something to our fans and talk to you a little bit about it as well. Mention branding, and there's going to be a tumbler available for sale. Here it is right here, and you see the UFCU Stadium logo, on the side of it. Now, cool thing about this cup, the one-time price, $50. However, once you buy it, you can get all the refills you want at UFC stadiums. You'd be one-time purchase. It'll pay for itself over the course of 6 games. You fill it up with your favorite soda of choice or whatever. So that's really cool. And this side of it is awesome. But I do want to flip to the other side as well here with you, Chris.
Yeah. There we go.
Pac-12. I mean, how surreal is that?
Yeah. It's such one, it's a testament to where the program is, but also a testament to the vision of where they want to go, right? Because that's a bold move. Everyone might look and go, of course you'd go. I don't know. Like, there's lots of reasons to continue to make progress and win some Sun Belt titles, right? And to be the biggest kid in the block. And I think that it's that boldness that we came alongside with that said, we really think that is a big move. And not only builds more brands. I want to touch on the first brand that you put on the cup, though. Like, this is a good element of trust, just as people think about branding. So we have the UFCU logo, which we actually evolved when we did the partnership. So those who might know our legacy logo, it looks a little bit different. We actually used the Texas State partnership to launch our new logo and really to announce that we're here to serve all of Texas. We're here to serve all of our members, and we're here to serve them in their complete life. So we kind of close that circle and use Texas State to launch that logo launch. Then you come together and you create a stadium logo in conjunction with us and Texas State. And so that logo that's on there is actually a unique logo only for UFCU Stadium, right? And that's something that we cooperated. And sometimes that can take a long time to put together because, obviously the university is very tight to its branding and very proud of what it's built. We're tight to ours. I'll tell you, this one came together in record time. And everybody wanted it really as we launched into this first game and as we launch into this next season. And so again, a good testament of just how strong that partnership is, how often the teams and we communicate and what we can actually get done. So that logo is, for those who are going to buy those things, that's the only place you can pick it up is in the stadium.
Now, you mentioned a lot there the relationship that UFCU has had over the years, Texas State, with students. But I want to get a little bit more specific with you.
Yeah.
What about student athletes? What are UFCU's contributions to helping out the student athletes here at Texas State?
Good question. So starting when NIL started, we started meeting with student athletes at other universities individually, every student athlete. So now what we've done, this will be, I think, the second, maybe the third year in a row. We will meet with every student athlete on the Texas State campus and do an individual plan with them. Some of them are getting NIL dollars, some are getting scholarship dollars, some are getting a little bit of scholarship dollars, some are getting more. Wherever they are, we want to make sure that they're understanding the money that's coming in and how they're budgeting for the money coming out, and they have plans. We have some kids who will come in with NIL dollars, like, I just don't want to touch it. So we'll help them with like an investment account, so something that comes over there. But really the most important part is that relationship that gets built between one of our team members who sits down with that athlete, talks to them about what they really want to do, talks to them about the challenges that they have, talk to them about the opportunities they have, and then what happens when those dollars come in. Because the NIL is, as and even some more changes this year, but with those changes, what people don't think about is how does that affect really the students? I mean, people will read about this one person got $1 million, and so every student athlete is getting millions of dollars. That's not true, right? It is less than the 1% that is getting, significant, what we call life-changing money. Less than 5% are getting what you call outside of college impactful money, and the rest of the athletes are working. But what it does is also puts a pressure on these athletes to think, well, these guys are all getting this. I've got to go hustle and get some. Or I've got to now go do these advertisements, or I've got to go do these other things, and thinking about their own branding in conjunction with other things that they're branding. And I know in Texas State, they've done a really good job the last couple of years within the fund, but also within creating opportunities for athletes to do that. What we want to be is that partner saying, okay, now you've got a little bit of income. What do we do to make sure that that little bit of income actually is beneficial to you? So we offer that. And then what we find is once they're set up, once the trust is there, they're hitting up our people all the time saying, what do we think about this? What do we think about this? And that's why it's so important that outside of that we're also on campus, and that they know that they can find that group anytime. We actually had one of the former student athletes, a baseball player, became a student ambassador for us and did an internship with us for all of last year. And that was a huge understanding, not just for him to grow his career. He's finishing up his MBA right now at Texas State. He's got one more semester. So we're super excited for him. But at the same time, it gave us an insight of like, what are the students really asking about, so that we can make sure we're creating the right kinds of counseling, the right kind of environment for them.
Now, earlier you talked family, and your sons, and one of them, Reagan, actually works in the athletic department in a number of roles. So what has that experience been like for him?
He's funny because I say I like college. Like, I love college football. He's a fan of sports. So, and those who are fans of sports know exactly what I mean is the difference between those two things. Like, he knows every stat. He knows every play. He can revisit them in his head. He played football through high school and was kind of that. So when he transferred into Texas State, he's a junior now. He did communications last year, so he got to help with the coach, keep the stats, help with press conferences, things like that. He's worked a little bit this summer in marketing, and I think now he's doing marketing and communications as we head into football season. What I love about Texas State is it gives him real world opportunities in an environment that I trust, right? As a parent, you're like, who's going to help shape him with the values that I want to have as he starts his workplace. But as a dad, you can't do that, right? Because at some point you gotta give him room to run. I love that he's getting to run and do this at Texas State because he's getting to learn this. And I told him, like, this change of conference time for him is where he's going to learn the most, right? Because there's so many things that are going to come new for the place, and it's a brand he can be really proud of, being a part of building. So as a dad, I couldn't be happier. As a partner, I couldn't be happier. And so I'm just like, I don't know if anyone listening here who's a parent, imagine if you got to work. The one funny thing was he did call me up one day, and he's like, "Hey, who does your T-shirts? I want to talk to him. Hey, I've got some ideas." And I'm like, now we're in it, so so it's really fun to see him blossom, but it's really fun to see him in a program that blossoms.
That's so great, Chris. And I kind of think about this conversation with you, and I think about UFCU's partnership with Texas State, not just the naming rights to stadium and its, affiliation with athletics, but the university as a whole, certainly with your son, going and working here as well, and the partnership, that involves athletics. Right. So, you have been tied to Texas State, in a number of ways for a number of years. That said, what would you pinpoint as being, and this could be athletics or non, your favorite Texas State memory?
Oh, this is a pretty good one. So as many know, obviously Texas State for a long time has had a tradition of jumping in the river. And so when we signed the deal, everyone was excited. But when we kicked off the deal, we did this, larger press conference and announcement of it. Well, we went, actually I'm going to grab it real quick. We went from there in our suits and we all jumped in the river. And so you can kind of see what that looks like. But that was an incredible moment of just having fun, realizing the significance of what we did, significance, that has played out and even grown more since then. But that one moment with Kelly, with Don, with Michael, who's our CEO, with Rhonda, who's been really shepherding this partnership for a decade, for all of us to be able to stand there, being silly, stand in the river, experience a little bit what all the students do when they win their championships or when they graduate, was something I'll never forget.
Great stuff, Chris. Well, it's been fantastic getting a chance to talk to you again. A lot of people see the name on the side of the stadium and see UFCU branches and stuff like that, but don't really get a lot of insight on what that means, the partnership with Texas State. So to be able to visit with somebody like you and hear your personal stories and more about the company and what that partnership means, I think it means a lot to our fans to get some more insight on that. So thank you so much for your time, and we're looking forward to another great year of Texas State football. Certainly the partnership between the two as well.
Oh man, we can't wait, and I know they're lacing them up pretty quick, so we're juicing and ready to go. Thank you so much for the time today, and allow us to expand on the partnership as we keep growing. I really appreciate it.
Of course, that again, Chris Turnley, Vice President of Member Experiences at UFCU, our guest on the Stay Sub podcast this week. And that's going to wrap things up for us here as well. So for Chris, I'm Brant as always. Yeah, he beat me to it. Keep your Stay Sub, and we'll see you next time.